In today's video, I will present concrete evidence that Native Americans and Kazakhs were once a single people and that they separated from each other in ancient times. First, let me clarify one important point. The term Turkic is not limited to the Turks of Turkey. Just as the Arabs have many countries, Iraq, Lebanon, Kuwait, and so on, the Turkic peoples include more than just Turkey. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, and other countries are part of the Turkic world. The languages of indigenous Americans and Turkic languages. One of the main indicators of ethnic relatedness is language. Researchers have discovered significant similarities between modern Turkic languages and the languages of North America's indigenous peoples. In the 16th century, English traveler John Josselyn wrote the following about the Sioux tribe. The American Indians, in their appearance, behavior, and customs, resemble the Tatars. Here, the word Tatar referred to Eastern Turkic peoples. This observation was later confirmed by academic studies. German scholar Otto Rerich, a well-known surgeon and expert in ancient languages, emigrated to the United States in 1848. Being fluent in Turkic, he met with the Sioux people and noticed that their language, in both sound and structure, resembled Turkic. He classified it as part of the Ural-Altaic language family. Later, it was found that not only the Sioux but also the ancient Maya language had many similarities with Turkic languages. Swedish scholar Stig Wikander wrote about this in the Ethnos Journal, 1967, comparing the grammatical structure of the Turkish and Mayan languages. He concluded that the Altaic and Mayan languages share a common origin. Today, the largest Turkic country by land area is Kazakhstan. By comparing words from the Kazakh and Mayan languages, one can clearly see their similarities. I won't pronounce the words aloud to avoid distorting their sound. I recommend pausing the video and closely examining the comparison table. If we compare the Turkish language from Turkey with Quechua, the language of a South American indigenous people, we also find numerous linguistic similarities there. Genetics and origins. Modern archaeological and genetic research has shown that the ancestral homeland of the indigenous peoples of the Americas is Central Asia and Siberia. This conclusion is supported by precise genetic analysis. The majority of indigenous peoples in both North and South America carry the paternal haplogroup Q1A3A QM3, meaning haplogroup Q is dominant among them. When comparing this haplogroup with those found among Turkic peoples, significant similarities emerge. Among Altai Turks, approximately 35% among Shors, 30% among Tuvans, 25%. Among the Saka, Yakuts, 20% among Kakas, 15% among Kazakhs, 8% among Turkmens, 3%. Thus, haplogroup Q is found in considerable proportions among Turkic populations. Moreover, among the indigenous peoples of Alaska, the C2 haplogroup is prevalent, the same haplogroup that dominates among modern Kazakhs, the largest Turkic nation today. All of this points to a common genetic origin between the indigenous peoples of the Americas and the Turkic peoples, making them genetically related. Dwellings of indigenous Americans and Turkic peoples. The teepee is a traditional conical dwelling used by the indigenous peoples of the Great Plains of North America. These tribes led a nomadic or semi-nomadic lifestyle, following the bison and constantly moving. The teepee was well suited to this way of life. It could be quickly dismantled, loaded onto a horse, and set up again with ease. The shatior, tent, was a traditional dwelling of the Siberian and Altai Turkic peoples. Usually made from animal hides, it was well adapted to forested and mountainous terrain. In shape and construction, it closely resembles the teepee. Northern indigenous peoples such as the Inuit of Canada, Greenland, and Alaska used snow dwellings known as igloos during winter. The igloo's rounded shape closely resembles the Kazakh yurt, the traditional dwelling of Turkic peoples in Central Asia. Hairstyles. There are notable similarities in hair traditions between the Turkic peoples and the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Both had customs of shaving part of the head while leaving the other part with hair. In the Middle Ages, among the Huns and their descendants, the Turkic peoples, a hairstyle called Idar was widespread. There were several types of Idar, each with its own symbolic meaning. In some cases, the Idar was seen as a symbol of freedom. For example, children born to slaves were not given an Adar. Over time, after many Turkic peoples adopted Islam, they gradually abandoned this traditional hairstyle. Similar hairstyles were also observed among various indigenous tribes of the Americas. Some of them shaved part of the head while leaving the rest of the hair long. Additionally, many indigenous men grew long hair, which was seen as a symbol of freedom. Long hair was also widely common among the Turkic peoples. Gold artifacts from the Scythians, the ancestors of the Turkic peoples, show that they wore long hair. During the Middle Ages, long hair remained popular among Turkic men. The Chinese Tang dynasty described the Turkic army as warriors with long hair. A well-known wall painting dated to the year 650 was discovered in the ancient city of Afrasiyab on the territory of modern Uzbekistan. It depicts West Turkic officials with long hair. Arab-Persian sources also describe the Karluks, Turgesh, Khazars, Kimaks, and Kipchaks, who lived in what is now Kazakhstan, as long-haired men. This tradition also persisted among the Turkmen. Among both the Turkic peoples and the indigenous peoples of the Americas, men often braided their long hair. However, among the Turkic peoples, this tradition gradually faded over time, and short hairstyles became more common in later centuries. Physical appearance similarities. If you compare the appearance of people from Kazakhstan, Siberia, and the Russian Far East with that of indigenous peoples of the Americas, you'll notice a clear resemblance. These groups share typical Asian features. In particular, indigenous peoples living in Alaska and neighboring regions strongly resemble Far Eastern Turkic peoples. Scalping. Since ancient times, especially during the eras of the Saka and the Huns, the Turkic peoples practiced scalping their defeated enemies. These scalps were tied to horses. The more enemy scalps a warrior had, the more respect he earned among the people and the more he was seen as a true Beytir hero. During battles, the sight of scalps fluttering from horses had a powerful psychological impact on the enemy. This tradition also existed among the indigenous peoples of the Americas. For example, the Sioux, Apache, and Comanche tribes were known to take scalps from their defeated enemies. Conclusion. Modern Turkic peoples and the indigenous peoples of the Americas were once a single people, around 25,000 years ago, who lived together. There are many striking cultural similarities and clear genetic links between them. Archaeologists claim that the ancestral homeland of Native Americans lies in Central Asia and Siberia. Geneticists who studied the haplogroups of both populations concluded that they are indeed related. If future linguistic studies officially confirm a common origin between Turkic languages and the languages of indigenous Americans, it would become one of the most significant discoveries in world history. It would mean that the languages and ethnic identity of these peoples began forming 25,000 years ago. Language is one of the most important elements of a nation's cultural and historical legacy. Today, civilizations such as the Chinese, Greeks, and Assyrians are considered ancient. However, even they cannot provide documented evidence of their history dating back more than 5,000 years. But if it is proven that the cultural and linguistic roots of Turkic peoples and indigenous Americans go back 25,000 years, then these peoples could rightfully be considered the oldest civilizations on Earth. Such precise evidence prompts a reconsideration of the history of nation formation and encourages viewing it from a new perspective. Turkic peoples and Native Americans would be able to proudly say, "We are the oldest nations on Earth," and the Turkic language could be recognized as the world's most ancient language. I kindly ask you to subscribe to my Telegram channel under the video, where I will be sharing important historical materials.
In the video that I did, Muslims in America before Columbus, talk about how Christopher Columbus knew about the Muslim interaction with the New World, how he studied their maps, how he hired Muslim captains, and archaeological discoveries that show a Muslim presence in the Americas 700 years before Columbus arrived. Also touched on how Muslims intermarried with natives and influenced their dress, their customs, their culture, and language. Next videos, I'd like to do a deeper dive into some of these influences, bring it back to the Spanish Inquisition, how some of the Muslims arrived in America, transatlantic slave trade, Muslim American slaves, and some of the relationships between Native Americans and Muslims. There was Muslim presence from Al-Andalus, Morocco, West Africa, and the Ottomanic Empire, or Ottoman. The Muslim Mandinkas of West Africa influenced the language of many Native Americans, more than likely from the 14th century, voyages of the Mandinkas under Sultan Abu Bakr. Here's a rendering of the Mandinka Muslim Empire. Also, many native words correspond with Turkish or Ottomanic and Croatian languages, the languages of Croatian Bosnia, which were part of the Ottomanic Empire. For example, Kentucky is an Indian word, Kaintuk, which means a dark and bloody ground. The Turkish word Kantuk means saturated or full of blood. The word Chicago was named from the Indian word meaning nasty, smelly, uncultivated land. The Turkish word Chikaka has the same meaning. Turkish word tepe means pointed or crested. Tipi. Look at this chart as an example. Pause to read. You can screenshot or pause to read this. Take a look at the similarities between Native American tribe words and Turkish words. You can screenshot or pause that as well. In addition, many states and cities in America have Muslim names. Native American tribes have Arabic connections in their names. And many words stem from Arabic. Sheriff comes from the word sharif, and mayor stems from the word amir. That's just to name a few. In the next video, I'm going to talk about the Spanish Inquisition, Moriscos, and the transatlantic slave trade. Like and follow for more.
Muslims discovered the Americas more than 3 centuries before Christopher Columbus, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has said. He made the claim during a conference of Latin American Muslim leaders in Istanbul, pointing to a diary entry in which Columbus mentioned a mosque on a hill in Cuba. Mr. Erdogan also said Muslim sailors arrived in America in 1178 inches. He said he was willing to build a mosque at the site Columbus identified. The Turkish president, whose AK party is rooted in political Islam, gave no further evidence to back up his theory, instead stating, "Contacts between Latin America and Islam date back to the 12th century. Columbus is widely believed to have discovered the Americas in 1492, while trying to find a new route to India." But in a disputed article published in 1996, historian Yusuf Mroa said Columbus' entry was proof that Muslims had reached the Americas first and that the religion of Islam was widespread. However, many scholars believe the reference is metaphorical, describing an aspect of the mountain that resembled part of a mosque. No Islamic structures have been found in America that predate Columbus. Mr. Erdogan said he thought a mosque would go perfectly on the hill today and that he would like to discuss building this with Cuba. The first people to reach the Americas came from Asia. They are believed to have crossed the Bering Strait about 15,000 years ago. The first European visitors to North America are widely thought to have been Norse explorers, about 500